Um, oh, um, great. That was my experience from that. Even from like, because I work a little bit in HR as well. I help them a lot as well. It's just really honing in again on all those qualifications. We usually typically know when you're sending in a resume just to send in a resume. We can tell right away because it's not really honing in. Um, but yeah, I think that's what
Yeah, I think
it's a broader.
yeah, like I think tailoring, yeah, that's a really good point. Like what immediately came to mind when you asked me that question was like honestly just taking it one step at a
Mm-hmm,
time.
mm-hmm.
Because I think after graduation, like when I reflect back, and this was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
When did we graduate? Yeah, 10, 10
Nine
years,
nine years ago.
9 years ago. So, like 9 years ago, the job market looked very different,
Hmm.
right? And even the way that someone with an environmental degree was perceived was very different. So, like, it was honestly just taking it one step at a time
Hmm.
because upon graduation, my personal experience was that I really couldn't articulate what skills I had coming out of
Hmm.
my degree. Like, I don't know. I couldn't have told you,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know how to put it on a resume, but I did know that I had some experience doing like retail work. I had
Hmm.
some volunteer experience. I
Hmm.
was a Faculty of Environment a senator, right? I had
Hmm.
spent some time on the university senate. So like I just listed as much things as I
Hmm.
could. I was open to like learning everything and anything
Yeah.
because I needed work in the environmental sector. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it was just taking one step at a time. Like that first job that I was talking about, where I was just doing like entry level admin things for this fuel wholesaler, there was nothing environmental about that.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, I think that's great because one, it's kind of close to a job that
Hmm.
I might be interested in the future. And I can sort of build up my skill set
Hmm.
in a pretty safe way, right? Because like
Hmm.
this is not a sector that I'm attached to and I don't want to build my career here, but I can take like there's a lot of learns here for me.
Hmm.
And I think it's also like yeah, just being there's
Hmm.
an openness that I think I've carried throughout from
Yeah.
that first job to then like how I ended up at Stantec doing land development was like just going to networking events and talking to people about my background. And the way I got hired for that job was not because of my skills, because I'll be really honest, I was underqualified. They probably should not have hired me. But I ended up talking to this very nice lady who was also a UW graduate, and we just connected. She liked me personally, and she liked that I was like
Willing to
interested.
open. Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested in learning. I didn't have an ego about my lack of skills, and I brought a lot of humility to just like going to this networking event
Hmm.
where I was outmatched. Like there were people there where with a lot better skills than me. They were better networkers.
Yeah.
They had everything on me, right? But I ended up getting a job just because I connected with that one person. Like I took the risk
Yeah.
almost, right? And I was open to whatever. So I think that's how I ended up at Stantec. And then Deloitte was the same thing. I took a
Yeah.
chance. I was like, I don't know, like sustainability, climate change, that's kind of related to my
Hmm.
degree. And I'm
Hmm.
interested in learning
Hmm.
and demonstrating interest in learning and passion for something
Hmm.
is sometimes so much more attractive on a resume or a cover
Hmm.
letter than like your actual skills
And
and what
that's what
you
I
already
mean. Yeah.
know.
And that's
Yeah.
what I mean when we get resumes, we can tell when someone's passionate about a job posting. Um, we can tell if someone's just putting in a resume because they want to reach their quota of, doing their putting their resume out like 100 a day or something. We can tell that. Even with me, like just working my way from the bottom all the way to the top as being a tree planter for this one company that I work for, and all the way up to the finance admin manager, I was completely open with whatever they wanted to throw at my way. Like I was just, yes,
Mm.
I wanted to be in the forestry industry. That was my passion. But I also found out, hey, I'm really good at business. Let me explore that. Let me see what
Yeah.
skills I can take that. And it's just really propelled all the way up to my career with Marion now. And I know what I needed to do for Jupiter.
Yeah,
and
and
that's
it
it.
really is one thing at a time,
Yeah,
right?
it's a process. This process for me, tree planter all the way up to the manager position, took me about 5 years, just learning everything. And they were really open enough to like, hey, you want to take a course on bookkeeping? We'll pay for you. Like, here, take it.
Yeah.
And you want to find a company that you want to resonate with as well. And I really resonated with them.
Yeah.
I was like furiously taking notes as you guys were talking, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. So there's two questions in the chat. So please continue to put your questions in the chat as we go on. If you submitted a question, we'll try and get to them, but we are going to prioritize questions that are in the chat because I can tell that these are questions that people are passionate about getting answers to. So please don't wait until your question is asked. Please feel free to put it in the chat as well. Okay, so another question from Melanie. What makes you excited and what makes you nervous about starting your own business? Oh,
What a
all
good
the
question.
laughs.
What a good question. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, I'm excited that I'm working with someone I really trust, and just really, I'm excited about those skill sets that I have learned in the past 5 to 6 years really showing up at Jupiter and being like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. That's all I wanted to know is just, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm passionate about. Let me do it. Let's just do it. Let's just go. I'm excited.
Yeah.
What I'm nervous about is that there's always, failure is always in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, like what happens if we don't make it? What's next step? But then I kind of look back at my history. It's just like if I wanted a career change, it's always there. It's okay to switch careers later on in life.
Yeah.
Like I've had so many career switches back then. It's just scary now, but maybe in the future, if there is failure, which I'm not going to say,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
um, it's always there, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. Like just to that point too, I think in my own reflection on my journey in like the last 9 years from graduating to being here, where we started
Hmm.
our own business, um, this sounds really like woo-woo, but it is a little bit about like I can understand the anxiety. And I
Hmm.
think that anxiety about what's next is
Hmm.
really high
Hmm.
when you're at those transition points in your life, right? Like graduation is a major transition point. And then actually they say about 2 years into your career is when you go through that again.
Hmm.
And then 5 years into your career
Hmm.
is where you hit that point again because now you have some experience and some learns, right? And then you start thinking about like what's next. So
Hmm.
I think it's important to just like have some faith in yourself. You've gotten yourself here so far, and like it's gonna be okay. Just one day at a time,
And
one
even
step at a
and
time.
even for us, it's just this is still a journey. This is still
Yeah,
something new.
yeah. Like
It's
we
like
haven't made it.
no,
No,
not,
we have not made it. We still have a lot to learn and a lot to work on.
no.
But what makes me excited, couple of things. I'm really excited to be in control of how I work with clients without being told how to work with them. And this is like a personal thing for me. I hate being told what to do. I have a problem with authority. I will recognize that like sometimes it's a bad thing. I should probably just like trust authority a little bit more, but I don't. So it's really nice for me to have the freedom. Um, and I'm also excited about like I'm passionate about some things that I
Hmm.
know are really valuable in the
Hmm.
world. And so I got to a point in my career where I was like, I can't look for those opportunities externally anymore.
Hmm.
I have to create those opportunities for myself, right? Like it's not out there for me. Like
Hmm.
and like I know now because I have the confidence now,
Hmm.
10 years after graduation to say like no, I can do this. Like
Yeah.
I have some skills. I know how a lot of different industries work. I know
Hmm.
how businesses work and I can do this. So that's what I'm excited about. What makes me nervous about it, I think is a little bit different from what Sarah said. I think what makes me nervous is okay, so first of all, I'm a very reluctant entrepreneur. Like I did not want to go out on my own
Hmm.
because I am better with other people. I like collaborating. I like talking to people, discussing ideas to get at the truth of things. And in my head, being an entrepreneur was like you're out there on your own, right? Like you're swimming in the ocean by yourself, kind of thing. So that to this day, like now, I know different because being an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you're alone. You just have to like find
The
your
right people.
people,
Yeah.
right? You have to go out there, look for peers, look for support groups, look for entrepreneurial groups that will, support you, build your network of support. But it still makes me nervous because day to day when I'm struggling with things, it does feel like a very lonely place, you know? So, like my challenge right now is like really actively leaning on other entrepreneurs to like be vulnerable, right? Like share like, hey, this is what I'm scared of, right? And I think like I don't know, like I don't know how to deal with this. This is new territory I'm in. So those are the kinds of things that make me nervous.
No, thank you guys for that. I have a friend who's an entrepreneur, and like all you shared is very similar to what she shared. She was kind of like, "Let's just do it," and then she did, and then she's like, "Oh, it's kind of scary and lonely," but then finding those peers who shared her passion, shared her struggles, and then could also relate and then provide her as well with resources to help her continue to grow and build her business, right? Um, Thank you both. Okay, so question for Victoria, and maybe Sarah, you can speak to this given your background a lot too, is what are the points and signs that indicate interest on an application? When you get an application, what makes you go, this person is actually interested in the job versus somebody who's just throwing out a resume?
So usually they read the job posting. A lot of people actually don't read the job posting and they just send a resume and a cover letter without really reading. So that's one clue. The second clue is really looking into the qualifications. And even if you don't have the skill, usually if you hit 70 to 80% of what we're asking for, you're usually in the top 10, usually, that we find, because you're usually pointing back again to the qualifications that we're asking for you to put on your resume and your cover letter. And we can usually tell in your cover letter or even in a written email saying, hey, I'm really passionate about XYZ job. If you want to reconnect or connect in a different time without, going through that interview process, we're usually pretty open. We're like, hey, I mean, we're a small business, so we're usually responding to interviewees anyway, just because we want to respect you guys as well. But that's from my experience anyways. Just if you're hitting 70 to 80% of those qualifications, you're usually in.
And maybe a question that I have as well is for people who are, because I think it's really easy to, when you're looking for jobs or when you're trying to find something, you go for the big companies, right? Because everybody knows your name. They're easy to find. You go for the big companies because they're the ones who have an entire HR team posting on LinkedIn. But somebody has, what's that secret? 80% of jobs are not advertised, right? So how do you go about, Miriam, you talked about networking with somebody who
Networking.
worked at Stantec and then you work there and that's a really big thing or a big company to put on your resume. But how do you find those small opportunities, those small employers like yourselves, like Jupiter Consulting, and then go for it, right? Like how do you what's the advice there? How do you start small? What's a good way to start small?
Usually it's word of mouth that we've found. People who have worked for our company, they're usually like, hey, like this company is working, like looking for tree planters or forest techs or whatever. Send them an email. If they're interested, they'll usually, comment back. But usually what I found too is that if you're living in an area and you want to live in that area, you can look at small to medium size enterprises, so SMEs. Because, I mean, I find that most small to medium enterprises usually are looking for people, not necessarily on a job posting, but they are looking to fill in those gaps. You can always just send them an email saying, hey, like I have these qualifications, I'm interested in your company. Is there any job opportunities that I can get into? And most of the time they will answer saying, hey, we don't have anything or we will have something. Contact me back in a month or so and we can set up something. That's my experience anyway. Miriam,
Awesome.
anything?
Yeah. Okay. I have three things to say.
Do
One.
it.
Okay, so number one, I think a really easy way of demonstrating and organizing your thoughts on a cover letter resume is like this. On the cover letter, um, think about how you would describe to a friend the things that get you out of bed in the morning, right? Like, so when you're excited about, like, God damn, I just love tree planting so much. I love getting my hands dirty. You know, I love the fresh air and I love the sunshine. I love getting sweaty and it just makes me feel connected to the earth, right? Like, that's how you would describe it to a friend, right? Write that down and then, like, do two edits to that to clean it up. And, like, that's what should be on your cover letter, right? What is it that gets you out of bed? Why do you want an environmental job, right? And then on your resume is where you want facts and numbers. So you're gonna have, I worked at the ecology lab for a summer and I led 3 tree plant ID workshops, or I was part of, I don't know, I was a participant of 3 workshops and I learned how to identify, okay, full disclosure, I don't know how to identify trees, but like I learned how to
But that's
identify
how I got my M&R
time.
job
Yeah, like
back
I learned,
then.
yeah, so I know how to identify blah 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 plants. Okay,
Yeah.
hard facts, facts and numbers. Even if it sounds trivial, as many numbers as you can. Okay, as many numbers as you can. That goes on your resume. Okay, so that was the first thing I was gonna say. How to indicate interest on an application. To Sarah's point, you want to relate your experiences, those hard facts and numbers, to what's in the job posting, right? So that's when you go through like all of the bullet points that they have, like must be able to use Excel. Okay, I used Excel because after I collected all that tree information,
I put it in an Excel sheet.
I organized it, and then I did this, this, and this, right? So that's where you want to describe that. The third thing is look for the right people to talk to when you're trying to look for those unposted jobs. And the way to do that is like
Send an email.
you can send an email, you can go in person. I find, because the job market, like I said, is different now, doesn't really work like walking into an office because most things are posted online. So they'll just tell you to go apply online, right? But you can always leave something with them, okay? You can still like, hey, I have a business card. Like if you guys don't have business cards, get them made up. They're not very expensive, right? Make them yourself, okay? Like you don't even have to go to Staples. Do something that you can leave like a calling card that they can forward to someone else. The other thing, so this is the last thing I'm going to say, is look for people who are in the operations department of the company, okay? HR is not going to help you. The owner's not going to help you. They're too freaking busy. Unless it's someone like us, like I would help you, but because it's just us. But don't rely on HR to answer your questions or give you information. HR is like an assassin for hire, right? Like they don't know what's going on or why they're doing it. They're just told what to do and they do their job. Okay, so even if there was a position that could be available, they don't know about it, right? The person that's going to know is like a director of operations, operational manager, someone like that. So when you're looking on LinkedIn, say if you're interested in Stantec, go look at Stantec, go like search Stantec in Edmonton. Okay, then look for like in your search, add in manager, and then look for like an operational manager. Because when you go and you send them an email, like a cold email, you say, hey, my name is Miriam. I just graduated from ERS. I have experience doing this, this, and this. I'd be really interested in a summer position, right? Even if there's nothing posted, they know that like all of this work is coming their way and they need to prepare for it. So maybe not right now, but in like 2 months, they're going to need a summer student to help do field work or whatever. And so they're more likely, that's actually how I got in with my first, my job at Noralta, doing the really boring regulatory stuff that I was doing. But like, hey, that launched me to Stantec. So, you know, yeah, look for operational people. They will be able to help you find those hidden jobs.
I think that was beautiful. And oh, so good. Gosh, so good. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the chat because there are questions. Sorry, guys. I'm just okay. So Sana asks is Um, what should you do to look your best in interviews? Very good question. What are the
Mm-hmm.
best questions to ask at the end of the interview?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you show that you're sure of yourself and eager to start the job? Because maybe the resume is not the problem. It's getting the, and maybe it's not the interview, it's the end of it, landing it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really good question. Okay. Do you have some thoughts?
You go first.
Okay. Um, okay, so the first question, what you should do to look your best, I'm assuming that means like how do you present
Attire.
well?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Well.
Or is it like how
Cover it
you
all. I mean, even how you speak, how your posture, I don't know,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
all of it.
Okay. So here's what I do. I'll share some tips and tricks. Okay, so I get very nervous.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is 15 minutes before the interview, like if I'm just sitting in my car or I'm like about to drive to the interview, I do deep breathing, like deep diaphragmatic breathing, at least like 4 or 5 times. And I'll actually make ugly faces and like breathe really hard. Because what that does is it actually exercises your jaw muscles
Mm.
and gets you looser in your face. Okay. And it also kind of exhausts you a little bit. And if you're a little bit exhausted, you can't be that nervous because you don't have the energy for it. Okay, so get yourself a little bit tired ahead of time. Then when you're interacting with them, um, just honestly, like try to practice finding a place where you can just like be calm. And I typically do that by like preparing the day before, right? So this is
Mm-hmm.
like now you're going ahead of the like way ahead of the interview. Try to visualize like what does Miriam look like succeeding? When Miriam is succeeding, she articulates her thoughts well. Her voice is like nice and projected,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all of these things. So like think about those kinds of things and like imagine doing it, like the visualization. Like in that interview, I'm sitting there, I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about my points, everybody's listening to me, and I'm just like doing such a good job describing everything, right? Like visualize just killing it. So that's the preparation. And I guess in terms of looking your best, I think it's best not to overdress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have this idea that when you go into an interview, you should be wearing like a
To
suit
your
and
point
like
too, it really
button down.
depends on the job as well. Because
Yeah.
my job, it was so casual. I showed up with like a little dress shirt and dress pants, and they're in like full on field tech job like wear,
Yeah.
and they're looking at me and they're like, "Oh, okay." So we just started the interview a little awkward, but I mean,
Yeah.
know what you're getting into too.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like maybe think about like it's okay. It's okay to not be wearing a suit all
Yeah,
the time, right?
yeah,
Like even when people came into Stantec, because the idea was like it's a bigger company, so
yeah.
like, oh yeah, I gotta dress up. But like
Dress
no,
up.
like we were so casual. We were so casual because it's environmental. Like
Yeah,
we were doing field work. Like
yeah.
we're
We're gonna get
dirty.
dirty.
We're dirty. So it was okay. Okay, so what are the best questions to ask at the end of talks? Okay, I was just listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about how people really need to understand how businesses work, and I think this is true for like the work that we're doing now too.
Hmm.
Here's the three things you need to remember about any job, any company that you are going to apply for. Okay, they have a finance admin department, they have an operational department, and they have sales and marketing. Okay, these are really broad general terms, but typically they will have these three departments. Okay, so when you're thinking about questions to ask at the end, think about from like a sales marketing perspective, what's something you would want to know about them? Like,
Hmm.
do you want to know if they have a social marketing team? Do you want to know like uh, I don't know, just like what are you curious about when it comes to sales and marketing? In operations, the job that you're applying for, is it an operational job or is it more of like a sales
Hmm.
job,
Hmm.
right? Is it both? How
How
do
do
they
they operate?
distinguish? Yeah, how do they think about that? Because sometimes operations is actually sales because you're working face to face with clients all the time, right? So like ask them questions about how they think about that. Admin finance. You can also ask them about like what's a good admin finance question?
I don't know. I usually ask them, "What's your day to day like
Yeah, what does your day to
day
day look like?
look like?
Yeah, what are
Like
the
what
culture? Like ask them
yeah.
about their culture.
Or like, what do you do in your job every day? Can you describe it to me? And you kind of get the feel of like, okay, culture, what they do, is it really busy? Is this something that I want to get into, you know?
Or like hierarchy, like
Yeah.
who would I be reporting to, and like what does the department look
Hmm.
like? That's a really good question. What
Yeah.
does this department actually look like, and where will I be?
Yeah.
You know, and then you get a sense of what how the company is structured.
Hmm.
So those are really good questions to ask at the end. It also demonstrates that you're interested in them
Yeah.
as a
Mm-hmm.
company,
You've looked
right?
them up. This is what I usually do to prepare. I look up their company, I look into their website, I see what they do, and then I kind of figure out, okay, what kind of questions I can tailor to this job posting and to them. Because it really demonstrates, hey, I'm interested in you, I want to be in your company, I'm trying really hard,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
I that those are perfect. I got a hack once. So one of the really cool questions I've gotten asked in, or like a student had asked us was, what's one of the pain points in your team and in your company, and how are you guys working to solve that? And I was like, oh, that's a very interesting question. And
Mm-hmm.
so we thought about it for a little bit, and then we shared, and that the student offered solutions as well. And I was like,
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's really
big
That's really
good.
brain,
good.
That's
big
really
brain
good.
energy. So
Another good one is, what does success look like in this role?
yes, yes, yes. So good. Thank you both. Okay,
Yeah.
question from Jason. What are any keywords or websites that you recommend for job searching? Eco.ca is one that Jason's aware of. Any other ones that you can recommend?
Um,
Like more environmental?
I think it would depend on the type of jobs you're looking for.
Yeah. Because I know for environmental, it's like goodwork.ca. I think there's Work Cabin. That's the two that I really know about.
Is that
Yeah.
work cabin?
I
As
think
in
it's Work Cabin. Yeah.
work
Yes, like a
cabin?
cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any from your experience? Jason says thank you.
Oh, yeah,
Any
was
from
that
your
helpful?
was that helpful, Jason? Gentle nod? Yes.
Okay.
Thumbs up. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Did you have any ones to share, Miriam, or shall we jump
No, I
forward?
think those are no, those are
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Cool.
more environmental related,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And
Perfect.
I know
Thank you.
like a Stantec actually used to use like Indeed.
Yeah, we
So
use
that
Indeed
thanks.
too.
Oh,
So it's
Nothing
usually the
fancy.
three that we use for more
hmm
environmental.
yeah. If I can throw in Job Bank Canada, just
Oh,
intentionally.
Yeah,
yeah,
Job
that's a
Bank
good one.
Canada is a
yeah.
good one. Yep. Okay. So Madhuni is asking, to start a company and find clients, do you need some kind of professional development licenses?
Hmm. Professional development licenses. What would that be? What's-
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Is there a license to do consulting? No, I don't think so.
I don't
What are
think
some?
so. So I
That's
think
okay.
I don't think that there are any professional development licenses. Like we had to incorporate,
Hmm.
um, and so I'm not sure if that's what the question is getting at. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer this one. I'm
No, of
sorry.
course. No, it's okay. Madhuni,
Like
feel
maybe,
free to expand on your
yeah,
question.
please
Um,
do, because I'm
yeah.
curious about this question.
Or come on mic if you would like. Whatever works best for you, but feel free and we can come back to your question.
Yes.
So
Hi.
Oh, I think
oh,
she's come off. Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yes. To find like clients, how do you reach to them? I mean,
Mm.
because I'm coming from planning background, I know so many planners, they start their company after getting their registered planner licensing.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
planners. Yes, because planning is a different
like,
world and you have to be licensed. Yes.
yes, like that. Do you guys need any kind of like any professional related, any licensing in environment related to find clients? How do you guys reach to clients?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand your question now. So for consulting in particular, no, you do not need a license to operate or do business or look for clients. If you're specializing as an environmental scientist, then you have to do something called a professional, like get your professional biologist. A bio is what it's called. Um, but that's not the realm that we're in. That's if you're like for example, if you have a really hard specialization, like you want to work in hydrology or wildlife, or you're a wetland scientist, right? And you typically have a harder science background, then you work your way up to getting your P-Bio. Or if you're in geology, they have the, what's it called? I only know the one that's in Alberta. It's called the AG, I forget the acronym, but it's the Alberta Geologists, so AGA maybe? Anyways, but they have those kinds of licenses as well. To be an environmental consultant, like a generalized one, like no, you do not need a license. So the way that Sarah and I, because now we are focused on business management consulting, and we're kind of catering to like any SME from any industry, we don't really need a professional license. We just incorporated our business, and we have a business model that we follow, and that's about it. So how we look for clients is mostly word of mouth. Like our first client, the client we're working with right now, is just a personal connection. Like I knew them, I told them what I was doing, and they wanted to be involved, and they knew where we were coming from. So yeah, it was just a personal connection. And in the future, they are going to refer us to people they know, and then that's how we'll get work, is referrals. Does that answer your question, Maduni?
Yes, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amazing. Thank you guys. Okay, question from Beverly. This is a frustrating one. What do you do? What do you think someone should do when they're almost getting the job? They're there, they've done the interview and they've almost got it, but then the rejection email says that they had just a little less experience than the person that was selected for the role, even for a job that requires you to have no experience. That I
So
know,
annoying.
like,
This is
It's so
triggering.
annoying.
This is so triggering.
yeah. So what's your advice? What's your advice
I
to
have
that
one.
individual?
Yeah, go for it.
Just email them back and say, if you have any other job postings in the near future, keep me listed.
That's a really good one.
Keep me listed, keep me updated. I know a lot of friends who did that and they got a job within a month or two because they asked them to be listed, because they were so close to getting that job and they really liked it, but someone from higher management didn't like what they did, so
Yeah.
that's basically what happened, right?
Yeah.
So basically, from my experience and other people's experience, just email them back saying, hey, I really enjoyed our interview. I want to be listed, or keep listing me, or as a potential, employee. I'm really interested.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good follow-up email is to ask them for feedback. This is something that you should do regardless of the reason. Like, it doesn't matter why they've rejected you. You've gotten a rejection email. Just say, hey, thanks for your time. I was wondering if we could schedule a 15-minute call so I could get some feedback, and then ask them questions about what you could have demonstrated better, what you could have done better in the interview, anything, right? And typically they'll give you something in terms of feedback, but also it just makes you look good.
Better, yeah.
Right? Because like you're the one that's asking for feedback outside of like everyone that got.
You stand out, basically.
Yeah, it makes you stand out.
Okay, thanks for answering my question. Do you think there's a point in asking them what type of experience I should try to gain in the future? Or do you think that kind of question might just be annoying and it kind of just depends on the job?
No, I don't think it's
No.
annoying, Beverly, but it's not an annoying question, but I would caution anybody against asking that question, because what I've learned in my journey is that everyone will give you a different answer to that, and then you will get confused. Because everyone's going to say like, oh, you need more project management. Oh, you need better tree identification skills. Oh, you need better this, or you need better that. And then if you start chasing that, you're going to get lost. So that's the reason I would caution against that. It's not a bad question.
No,
it's
it's
just
not.
like you want to stay focused on what you want to do.
And most of the time when I do ask a question like that, they're usually like, I don't know. And it's just like, okay, well, that didn't produce something that I wanted to produce, because I was hoping to build that conversation still, build like a networking system, but sometimes it just kind of slapped me in the face and be like, oh, okay. But keep trying. It's not an annoying question. It really depends on the person too.
Yeah, it depends on the person.
Yeah.
I just like I don't know if like you struggle with this, but like I to this day struggle with imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So like that question is not good for me. Like if I keep
Mm-hmm.
asking everyone what I can work on, they're gonna give me different answers, and I'm gonna be like, ah, I suck at everything. So like it puts me in a tailspin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope
I
that's
think
helpful.
that's a really good answer. Thank you. And also the imposter syndrome thing is very relatable. Yeah.
Very real.
Yeah.
And like, listen, it doesn't go away, right?
Yeah.
I'm 10 years after graduation with experience, and I get it.
Yeah,
Like,
even like working with Miriam, it's just like, am I really qualified for this? Like, am I actually a finance admin manager
yeah,
person?
yeah, you
I
are.
don't
Yeah,
know.
you are.
Sometimes I have those days, so.
Yeah.
Also, I have one other question, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I can put it in the chat or just throw it in here. It's somewhat unrelated. And I'm wondering, how do you approach the topic of moving for work, like to a new province or country during the interview? Because I find that sometimes when I tell an interview person in the interview that, like, yes, I'm willing to move for this job, um, it kind of gets awkward because they're just like, oh, yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
so is it a job that's already in a different location and you are willing to move for it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I would just keep trying because that's what I did when I moved to Alberta. Like if they give you an answer that's like, oh, I don't know if we want to, because what they're trying to avoid is typically if they hire you with the understanding that you will move for the position, that sometimes they have to give you some kind of package which like covers moving
Travel
costs and stuff like
expenses.
that. And so like maybe give them some clarity on that. Like, are you expecting that or are you not expecting that? Like, if you'll do it at your own cost, then maybe make that clear because
Hmm.
maybe that's the hesitancy on their part.
Hmm.
Yeah, thanks. That is something that I was really unclear on because I know nothing about those kinds of packages. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and those
anyway.
packages can range. Like, okay, so for example, like if Deloitte has it listed on their job posting that like that you willing to relocate and will pay for it, that can mean anything. That can mean like they pay for your flight ticket, your first month of rent, they'll help you find some place to live, or it can mean that you get like
A stipend or something.
for a month,
Yeah.
right? Or they'll pay for your moving truck or
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
So maybe figure out like what you're willing to do and what kind of help you would need. And if you can share that, that might give them a little bit of peace of mind in terms of like what
Hmm.
your expectations are.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amazing. I love it. Okay. Elisha had a question. Elisha's question is, what are the must-haves and nice-to-have skills that the job market expects from an environment degree?
That's so job dependent.
Yeah, I would say
Mm,
it's job dependent. I wouldn't pinpoint must-haves or nice-to-haves. Um, I don't know.
It depends on the job, I would say. Because even just between the two of us, I'm thinking like
Hmm.
the skills that I had to learn. Because like I said, I scammed Stantec into hiring me. Like I don't know why they hired me, but they did, and like I had a lot to learn. And so like what I really need to work on was like project management skills, right? Like learning the project life cycle. That was really important for my work, but that was not your
No, that
experience.
my experience is more like, hey, you want the job? Here you go. You want to start in business in forestry industry? Okay,
And I
here's something small, you
Well,
know.
like to be fair, I think like the things that you had to learn were like time management. How does a business work
Or
internally? And then like,
budgeting, job costing, financial reports, bookkeeping, but all of that was just me working in the job.
yeah,
So,
and it was something that like came
yeah,
at you with time,
yeah. It
right?
wasn't all at once because my boss is very nice about it. So he had a plan for me to be like, okay, payroll first, and then job costing, and then budgeting. But that took like 5 years basically, like just spread out. But I wouldn't know what to have the must have or nice to have skills.
Yeah.
It's really job dependent.
Like, for example, are there like softwares that cut across
I'm not
softwares?
familiar with that, but like, did you say softwares? Yeah. Um, like I mean, software, I get it depends, right? Because if you're applying for a GIS job, that's a whole different set
Yeah,
of software than like project management,
yeah.
right? So it really depends. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. If I can even do something that I think would be really cool. Oh, bye, Melanie. Thank you so much for being on camera and asking all your questions. I will say that we have this session goes until 12:30. So whether you're able to stay on or jump off, that's totally fine. We're still taking questions, and the Q&A portion is being recorded. So thank you both so much for answering all these questions, and it will be circulated appropriately. Um, it would be really cool, actually, to Elisha's question. I think that's a really good question that you've brought up. So, for people on the call, if in your job search there are some skills or software that you've seen that comes up, populate it in the chat. Let's share some knowledge. Let us know,
Yeah,
what have
that's
you seen that people can maybe pick up on? Because I saw Jason do like a big head nod when he was like, when you guys said it was job dependent, and I was like, oh, Jason knows something we don't.
Tell us what
Um,
you know, Jason.
but anyhow, I do want to do another question from Elisha as well. The question asks is, should you reply to the recruiting manager acknowledging the receipt of your job application, or do you just wait until you get an invitation for an interview?
I mean, sometimes you can tell if it's an automated, like if it's a bot or a real person. So I think my first instinct would be to like try to figure out if it's a real person or if it's just like, are they mass replying to people,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
If it's a bot, don't bother, obviously, but I don't think it hurts
No.
to just say like, hey, thanks, like, thank you, looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing you in person.
It just
And
means
that's
that
it.
you're excited
Yeah.
from my perspective, right? If I get an email like that, I'm like, okay, this person's excited, they want to work. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
think in terms of impact, like how much impact is that email making? Probably not a whole lot, but is it hurting you?
No.
Does that help, Elisha? Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take some more questions. Is there anybody else who has a question right now? It's just for the folks who are still on the call. If not, I'm gonna ask two more questions from some of the pre-submitted questions, and then we can just like play some music. I'm kidding. No, but then we can maybe wrap
Yeah.
up. But okay, so feel free to pop questions in the chat. But I'm gonna ask a question. Here is how do you approach, and I think you guys already spoken to this like literally the entire thing, but if you could put it in bullet points, maybe some step-by-step guides, is how do you approach the beginning of your career after completing your undergrad? How do you figure out what you want to do and where you want to start?
Okay.
Just looking back in my journey, right? It was just figuring out what do I really like to do? Because I mean, I was a GIS analyst. I was very passionate with GIS. I got an excellency of diploma of GIS for a reason. I thought GIS and forestry was going to be my main thing, but then I realized in the real world, I didn't like GIS. It was not something that I wanted to do. I didn't like the atmosphere either. It was a big corporation. I'm not going to name the corporation, but it was a big one. I didn't like the vibe in there. I didn't like the work. I didn't like I was invisible basically. And I didn't like that. So I was like, okay, this is not what I wanted to do. So let me jump into something, I don't know, more field work related. And I thought I was into that as well, but no, I didn't really like it either. It was just figuring out like trial and error, basically. You're still young, you still have all this journey in front of you. I'd say just figure out, don't be afraid to try out new things. It's okay to not know the things that you think you know, but you don't, because I didn't know when I was like, what, 22, 23. I thought I knew, but I didn't. So just, I like that I bounced around because I figured out what I wanted to do, and it was business. And I didn't realize I was into business. I was far from business, basically. So I'd say, I don't know, bullet points is what do you really like to do? Figure it out. If you don't like it, it's okay to jump. Keep going. It's a journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would say like what I would have done differently is I would have used some like assessment tools, some really established assessment tools that exist out in the world, and I would have like really taken my time to do those, to like do some of this self-discovery. Um, there are a number of resources online that you can use to figure out what your values are. Okay, I think Brene Brown has a list of like a values list, and basically what you do is it's a, like if you can picture like 3 columns of just words, and what you do is you go through it and you circle the words that resonate with you in terms of like what you value in your life, right? And then when you've like gotten it down to 10, then you do it again and get it down to 5 or whatever, and like that's what your values are, right? And like these are things you can also put on your resume that really demonstrate to people like who you are, right? Um, and like to actually, yeah, to this day, my resume has my like personal values on it, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm a big values person. I made Sarah do a values exercise too. Because it's important, right? It's important to know who you are, but
Yeah.
like how do you go about doing it? Values exercises are great. There's this assessment tool called 16 personalities. If anyone knows about that, do that, you know, learn more about yourself, what you're more naturally inclined to. There's another one called Working Genius. Working Genius is my favorite because what it does that none of the other assessment tools do, and it is paid, it's $25 to do it, but you could spend $25 and have it for like the next 5 years, right? What's really great about it is you get an idea of, based on your personality, so like when you do 16 personalities, you get a breakdown of like who you are and stuff like that. Based on that, how are you going to show up at work, right? And their model has like the acronym is WIDGET, so WIDGET, right? And it goes from like high level thinking to the kind of person who likes to be on the ground, like getting everything to deadlines, right? Like meeting the deadlines, getting things done. And based on that, like if you have a good idea of your values and your personality and your working genius, like how you show up at work and how you like to work, you'll get a much clearer understanding of like who you're going to be in the workplace, right? And if you can articulate, like if you can understand that for yourself and then articulate it in an interview, well, that's a really powerful thing. So Working Genius is one that I would recommend. And yeah, I think that's more of like a how do you figure out
Yeah.
what it is that you like to do? Because I know like I was really confused because ERS is a really broad program, right? And like Chinweek, I think you and I talked about this, about how like, yeah, what can you do with your environmental degree? Everything, but it's like, that gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Working Genius I really like because I knew I liked to finish things, but I didn't know how to put it into words. So
Yeah.
it was called tenacity,
T.
and I'm like,
See, Sarah's the T.
I'm the tenacity. I want to finish stuff. It brings me joy to finish a deadline, to finish a project, and I didn't realize that. And a lot of that finance admin world makes sense because you really need to finish your projects, basically.
So I hope that's
That-
helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know for me, like everything that you guys said was a big one. I think somebody said something to me that was really cool, and they were like, just say yes. In addition to you waiting for people to say yes to you, you say yes to opportunities. It may not be perfect. It may not look exactly like what you want it to be. It may be boring.
Exactly.
It may be so boring, but it'll get you in the door. It'll get you to learn about yourself and what you do and not want to do. Anyways, but love that.
Yes,
Sorry, I'm so
exactly.
No,
passionate
I
about
love
this. Is
that.
so great.
I love no, you know what? I love that because especially like I think that's a really good mindset. To just say yes,
Say
right?
yes. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of humility in it,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of like just like openness in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Guys, this is great. Okay, question from Beverly, and then I'm gonna go and go plug in my laptop because if you guys remember, I moved because of the drillers. So
Okay.
I have to go plug my laptop in. Okay, the question from Beverly is, if you have skills in multiple, somewhat unrelated areas, should you focus your job hunt on specific set of skills, or should you just try and apply to everything? Have lots of different packages. What are your thoughts?
Good question. Yeah. Should you focus your job hunt on specific set of skills? Yeah, because then you can really demonstrate that
Yeah,
you've tailored your resume.
yeah.
Or should you just try to apply to everything?
I don't know. I usually apply to something that speaks to me. I mean,
I like maybe it's a bit of a personal thing too,
yeah.
because like I've done both depending on what situation I was in. Like when I was real desperate, like I would just apply to everything. I've done it too, you know? Um,
I mean,
Man, this is a
I
great
was
question.
I was kind of different. I specifically applied for a job that I was really interested in, and I tailored my resume and cover letter, and 90% of the time I got an interview, I'd say.
Beverly, like I'm curious a little bit, like sorry, can I just ask you like what your background is and what type of work you want to do?
Yeah. So I really want to go into environmental restoration, like ecological restoration.
Okay.
Um, uh, but I've got a bunch of different kind of random looking skill sets.
Yeah.
Because I've done like I'm not in a co-op stream, and so my experiences have been from like some volunteer work and some, summer jobs. But I've got experience in like removing invasive species and other experience in graphic design for like communications on Instagram, um, advertising for that restoration and removing invasive species. Um, yeah, so I've got like some computer skills and then some hands-on, on the ground skills.
Okay. I have two thoughts. One is that I think if what you're interested in is ecological restoration, keep your job hunt focused to those types of jobs. Okay. And this is a little bit of the art and science of highlighting specific skill sets while still filling out your resume with stuff that's maybe not as related, right? So I think this is where like the layout of your resume really matters and like where you're putting specific skills. Like you have these graphic design skills, you don't want to take them off of your resume because then it's kind of empty. And also like you don't know if someone's gonna be like, oh hey, we also need you to do this thing, right? So don't take it off, but like maybe play around with layouts, Beverly. And what I would say is like keep your ecological restoration
The top.
skills near the top.
Yeah.
Um, and then if there's a way to have your like graphic design or other things that are not directly related to ecological restoration, like having that near the bottom or like on the side. Like I don't, you know what, I don't have my resume ready to go here, but I would have shared it if I could. But the way my resume is structured is I have my personal information at the top, and then the main chunk is like work experience, and on the side is where I put my values, my hobbies, like personal things. And so scanning it is really easy because you can see like at Stantec, I did this, and this, and like boom, 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 right? And then if I have extra things I want to just throw in, like I have random stuff too. I'll just put it at the bottom, like extra, like achievements or whatever, like extra skills or something like that, and it's at the bottom. So maybe play with layout. That's all I can think of.
Even with the graphic designer, there's still soft skills in there that you can kind of
Yeah.
relate back to the environmental assessment stuff. Try to twist it in a way that you can kind of relate to that. Because I've done that too, and they seem okay. Like it's not directly related, but it still shows a skill set.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
Okay.
helpful. That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah.
I think that does help. So as far as I understand, if you're like really desperate, then apply to everything kind of. And then if you find a job that just seems perfect, that really fits with you, um, then you can put more work into tailoring that application.
I mean, that's what I did. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but I'm just sharing my experience. I think a tailored resume is
Yeah, land.
always gonna land better, and it's
Yeah.
always a better idea. Um,
I
Yeah.
like
yeah,
to
I think it's maybe how you tailor it. So if you're tailoring it for something that like is for ecological restoration, because that's what you're actually interested in, just make sure you're pulling out those like skills and really highlighting them. So someone looking at your resume like within 3.5 seconds knows
Yeah.
like that's what you're interested in, that's what you want to do, these are the skills you have.
And that's literally how long we look at a resume and cover letter is 5 seconds.
A couple of seconds.
And if you can get us hooked in, we're hooked in.
That's fair enough. Okay, cool. Also, I liked your points about the structure of the resume because currently my resume looks similar to how you described yours. Um,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Yeah.
So,
I mean, maybe, I don't
cool.
know. I don't have the best layout. We're all just trying to figure this out.
No, that's fair enough. Um, cool. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. We are all trying to figure this out. Okay, so it seems like a few different folks are logging off. Question to the both of you is, where can people find you, connect with you, if they want to learn more from you, pick your brain? Tell us.
What a good question. Where do you want people to connect with you?
Probably email's the best for me. I mean, I have a LinkedIn, but I don't really go on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But if you want, you can email me at sarah@jupiterconsulting.ca. Shoot me an email if you want to chat some further stuff.
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn. I don't check it as much as I should, but yeah, you can find me, Miriam Gill. And yeah, my email's similar, so Miriam@jupiterconsulting.ca.
Amazing.
I'm more responsive by email. So.
Yeah, I'm very responsive via email.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. So the question I'm going to ask is hopefully for some people, but what's the hack of finding people's emails for those jobs if we want to like really go the extra mile?
Yeah, it's an art and science. You kind of have to
That
be
it is.
really good, really good at looking for people.
Yeah.
What I've done in the past is I will look for them on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Sometimes I try to send a message and see if I can get them to give me an email.
Mm-hmm.
And like honestly, if you find the right person, they will share their email address with you, and then you don't have to do a whole lot of sleuthing. Other ways is that if you find someone that you think you want to talk to, but their email is not easily available, look at what a company they work for, go to that website, see if you can find them listed as like in their people,
Yeah.
right? Usually they have a people tab. Oftentimes there's an email listed there. So I've found people that way.
or I've seen too, if they don't have an email listed directly on the website, you can look up their name or you can look up their department basically and see, okay, these are the people in the department. Let me Google this person's name, and usually like some email will pop up too. I found it that way as well.
Yep. Yeah. Lots of sleuthing.
Yeah.
Sleuthing.
Sleuthing it is. Okay. All right. So with that, I think we'll bring it to an end. Thank you to everyone who took the time to answer questions, to ask your questions, come off mute, come on camera. It was a pleasure to meet you all and yeah, go through your questions. Miriam and Sarah, oh, thank you guys so much. I feel so full. No,
Oh,
your advice. This is so great. I know it wasn't even
thank
for me, and
you.
I'm just like, wow, great. This is yeah. See all the thank yous. You see all those thank yous in the chat? All the thank yous. So thank you guys
Aw,
so
so
much.
Thank
nice.
This was
you.
excellent. So yeah, guys, email them, find them on LinkedIn. Is it okay if we share your emails with folks afterwards as well?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll share those as well, so keep an eye out for that. So thank you, everyone. Take care. All the best for your job search, your job hunt, you're starting your business, and figuring out what the heck it is you want to do with your environment degree.
You can do it.
You can do
You
it.
can
It's
do
a
it.
journey.
Don't be
It's
afraid.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Bye,
Bye,
friends.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.